My phone lit up on the nightstand at 5:47 a.m. The vibration rattling against the wood like a warning shot. Serafina's name flashed across the screen. And before I could even say hello, her voice came through tight and clipped.
Meet me at the
Angelica.
Angelica, whatever you do today, stay away from the house.
Stay away from the house. Don't come back until I text.
I mean it.
I mean
no
it.
questions.
The line went dead. I sat there in the half-dark, sheets pooled around my waist. The faint scent of her lavender body wash still clinging to the pillow beside me. My heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. What the hell had happened between the soft kiss she'd left on my forehead at midnight and this? I stared at the empty side of the bed. The indentation where her body had been. We'd been married 14 months. But some mornings still felt like we were balancing on a tightrope no one else could see. Serafina was the school counselor at Lincoln Prep. The kind of woman parents trusted with their kids' secrets and teachers invited to every faculty barbecue. In that world she had to be careful. Professional. Untouchable. And I was the photographer who worked odd jobs. The one who laughed too loud and loved her too openly. By day. Built brick by brick. By night. She tore it down with her own hands. I spent the morning pacing our tiny Wicker Park apartment. The floorboards creaking under my bare feet. Rain tapped against the tall windows. The kind of steady Chicago drizzle that made everything feel heavier. I tried to work, editing shots from last week's engagement session. But every time I zoomed in on two women smiling at each other under string lights, my chest tightened. Serafina had warned me before.
Don't pick me up from school today.
Little things. Don't pick me up from school today. The principal's doing rounds. Or if you run into me at the grocery store. Microtensions that piled up like unpaid bills. I'd sigh. Tell myself it was temporary. But today the urgency in her voice had been different. Sharper. Around noon I couldn't stand it anymore.
Let's go!
I slipped on a hoodie and walked the 3 blocks to the corner cafe we both loved. The one with the cracked leather booths and the barista who knew our orders by heart. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside.
Hey, can I get a
And there she was, Serafina. Sitting at our usual table near the back. Laptop open. Dark hair pulled into a neat bun. She looked up. Eyes softened the way they did when we were alone. Then her jaw tightened. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. Stay away. I froze mid-step. The smell of fresh espresso and wet was suddenly too thick in my throat. I turned and left before the barista could greet me. My hands shook the whole way home. That afternoon the rain turned to a downpour. I sat on our couch with the lights off, watching water streak down the glass, and let the memories roll in slow and heavy. How we'd met at that same cafe 2 years ago when she spilled her latte on my camera bag and apologized for 20 straight minutes. How her laugh had sounded like the first real thing I'd heard in months. How she'd whispered, "I love you," against my neck in the back of a lift and I'd felt the world tilt. She'd never been with a woman before me. The trust she gave me piece by piece had felt sacred. But the world outside our apartment didn't care about sacred.
The world outside.
It cared about appearances. About funding for the counseling program. About what the school board might say. If they knew the quiet, composed Serafina had a wife waiting at home. The front door clicked open at 7:12 p.m. I stayed on the couch, knees drawn up, heart thudding. Serafina stepped in, kicking off her damp heels, raindrops still clinging to the shoulders of her gray blazer. She didn't look at me right away. She just stood there in the dim entryway light, shoulders rising and falling with a long, shaky breath. The scent of wet pavement and her signature perfume, something woodsy and expensive, filled the small space. Finally she crossed the room. Slow. She stopped a foot away, close enough that I could see the exhaustion etched under her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said.
I'm sorry.
Voice barely above a whisper. It was parents' night. One of the moms is on the board. She kept asking about my personal life. I couldn't risk it. I wanted to reach for her,
Just told me that this morning.
but I waited. That was our dance. You could have just told me that this morning. She exhaled through her nose, a sound that always made my chest ache. I know.
No, I
And then I
panicked.
push. Her fingers flexed at her sides
And
like
then
she
I
didn't trust them not to
pushed.
touch me yet. The microtension hummed between us, thick as the rain outside. We ate takeout Thai on the couch in silence, the TV murmuring some forgettable show neither of us watched. Every few minutes her knee would brush mine. Accidental. She'd pull back. I'd pretend not to notice. But the air felt charged, the way it always did after one of her warnings, like the distance she forced during the day made the night feel inevitable. Later, off into a hazy glow through the blinds, she finally moved. She set her empty container aside and turned toward
You
me,
can tell me.
eyes searching my face like she was memorizing it. "Come here," she said, the words rough with need. I slid across the cushions until our thighs pressed together. Her hand found mine, thumb tracing the inside of my wrist where my pulse jumped. The touch was tentative at first, then firmer. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "You know I hate this too," she murmured.
I've
The
spent
pretending.
so long pretending that everything is fine.
It's just I built
But
this
staying
life.
away doesn't make the feelings disappear.
Angelica.
It just makes them harder to face.
The job.
is more than just guidance.
The kids who
It's
actually
about
listen to
fighting
me.
for these kids, making
If
sure
they knew.
know they matter, even when it feels impossible.
Her voice cracked on the last word. I squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin, the slight tremble. "I'm not asking you to burn it down,"
but
I said
hate the
softly.
wall.
"I just hate watching you build the wall higher every time someone gets too close to the truth." She leaned her forehead against mine. Our breaths mingled, warm and unsteady. The apartment was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the soft patter of rain. I could smell the faint salt of her skin, the day's stress still lingering. Slowly, over my shoulder, into my hair. The kiss, when it came, wasn't rushed. It was the kind that started with a sigh against my lips, then deepened like she was pouring every unsaid thing into it. I tasted the Thai spices and the mint from her toothpaste and something uniquely her that always made my head spin. We didn't speak after that for a long time. Clothes came off in quiet stages, her blazer, my hoodie. The careful unbuttoning of her blouse like we had all night. Her hands mapped my body with a reverence that still surprised me after all this time. When she pulled me on top of her on the couch. The city lights painting stripes across our skin. She whispered my name like a prayer. The connection between us felt deeper than words. Like every daytime warning was just the pressure building toward this release. I moved with her, slow and sure, listening to the little gasps she made. Feeling the way her nails dug into my back when the pleasure crested. Afterward we lay tangled. Her head on my chest. Our heartbeats sinking in the dark. But the morning always came. 3 days later the pattern repeated. Another text at dawn, board meeting today. Stay away from downtown. I spent the hours wandering the lakefront, wind whipping my hair. Wondering how long we could keep living in these two separate worlds. That night she came home quieter than usual. She didn't warn me with words this time, she just walked straight to the bedroom and left the door open. I followed. Standing by the window in nothing but her slip. City skyline glittering behind her. I don't trust anyone, she said suddenly. The words dropping heavy into the room. Her back was to me.
Hiding things from me,
Shoulders rigid.
It just eroded all
Not
the
really.
trust we had. I couldn't
Not
stay
after
in
the
that
way my last
situation
relationship
anymore.
ended. The lying. The way it all blew up. She turned. Eyes glistening. Except you. Angelica.
God, Angelica,
You're the only person who's ever made me want to try. I crossed the space between us in 3 steps. My hands found her waist. Pulling her close until there was no daylight distance left. Then stop pushing me away when it gets hard, I whispered against her hair. We're married. This is our life. She kissed me hard then. Almost desperate. Like the confession had unlocked something feral. We made love on the bed this time.
So beautiful,
Slower.
Sarah.
The kind of intimacy that left marks, not on skin. But somewhere deeper. Her sighs turned into my name. Over and over. Until the tension broke and she clung to me like I was the only solid thing in her world. The real storm hit on day 5.
I know, they let me off early.
I was editing photos at the kitchen table when her key turned in the lock earlier than expected. She stepped in, face pale, holding an official-looking envelope. They offered me the district-wide counseling director position, she said, voice flat. It's everything I've worked for.
But living in
More
a
money.
conservative suburb is
More
a
impact.
completely different experience.
But it's in a conservative suburb. Board members who've made it clear they don't support alternative lifestyles. She set the envelope down like it might bite her. They want an answer by Monday. And they want to meet my family at the welcome dinner. The words hung between us. I felt the floor shift. This wasn't a one-day warning anymore. This was the wall becoming permanent. We stood there in the kitchen, late afternoon light slanting across the tiles. The smell of coffee still lingering from breakfast. I waited for her to say the safe thing, to choose the job. To ask me to stay in the shadows a little longer. Instead she looked at me. Really looked. Raw and terrified. I can't do both anymore, she said. I can't be the perfect counselor by day and come home to you at night pretending the distance doesn't kill me. But if I take this, I lose us. If I turn it down, I lose the one thing that's ever made me feel like I'm doing something good in this world. My throat closed. The choice wasn't clean. It never was. I reached for her hand, lacing our fingers together, feeling the cool metal of her wedding band against mine. Then we figure out what we can keep, I said.
You could just come as a roommate.
We don't have to burn everything. Maybe we move slower. Maybe I come to the dinner as your roommate at first while you decide how much to tell them. But I'm not staying away forever. Serafina. Not from you. Not from us. She let out a shaky laugh that sounded half like a sob. You're impossible. But she pulled me into her arms anyway, burying her face in my neck. I felt her tears against my skin.
I love you too, Angel.
Warm and real. Outside, the city kept moving, cars splashing through puddles. People hurrying home, but in our little apartment the world narrowed to just the two of us. She didn't take the promotion.
It was a long week to us.
Not yet.
And the weekend.
She asked for a week to
And the
think.
weekend.
And we spent that week living in the in-between. Some days she still warned me to keep my distance in public. Some nights she couldn't handle even an inch of space between our bodies. We fought once. Voices low and fierce in the dark. About how long we could keep compromising. But every argument ended the same way, her reaching for me. Me meeting her halfway. The kiss tasting like salt and forgiveness. A month later we drove out to the suburbs for a quiet dinner with 2 board members.
Are you ready for the dinner?
I wore a simple black dress. She introduced me as her wife without fanfare. Just a quiet steadiness in her voice I'd never heard before.
I'm confident this is the right.
One of the men
Well, that's
raised an
certainly
eyebrow.
food for thought. But tell me,
The other smiled politely
who
and
is
changed the
responsible
subject.
for this incredible spread?
No fireworks.
You look
No
exhausted,
standing
are you
ovation.
all right? Just feeling the weight of it all.
Just
It
life.
never really stops, does it?
No, but we keep going.
On the drive home that night. Windows down. Cool spring air rushing in. Serafina rested her hand on my thigh. I still don't trust the world, she said softly.
But I trust us.
But I trust us. I covered her hand with mine. The city
That's
lights
enough for
blurring
now.
past. That's enough for now. We pulled into our parking spot.
Finally home.
The same
glad we got
apartment
this
waiting with
spot.
its creaky
Me too.
floors and
Let's
rain-streaked
pull out, let's head
windows. She didn't warn me to stay away. Instead, she leaned across the console and kissed me slow. Deep.
Did you
The
have a
kind
good
of
time
kiss
tonight?
that promised tomorrow and the day
I
after
always
that.
do when I'm with you, Angie.
We walked
That
upstairs
was
hand in
such a
hand,
lovely
the distance
evening.
finally,
It really
quietly,
was.
shrinking to nothing
glad we
more than the
finally
space
tried
we
that
chose
new
to close
place.
ourselves.
It's
It
not
wasn't perfect.
Is it?
It never would
I
be.
just keep seeing more
There would be more
ahead.
warnings, more
I know.
microtensions.
We have to
More
be
nights when the weight of
realistic
the
about
outside world pressed too
challenges.
hard. But there would also be mornings where she woke me with coffee.
He
And a
actually said
sleepy
that right to my
smile.
face.
Afternoons where we laughed in the
cannot
same
believe he said
cafe
that.
without
That is the
looking over our
funniest thing I've heard
shoulders.
all week.
And nights where the only thing that mattered was the way her body fit against mine like it had been carved for exactly this.
It was
I
the
still
last
remember
time
the
I
way
saw
she
him.
sighed that first urgent morning on the
I was so
phone.
afraid.
The way her voice had cracked with fear and love all tangled together. I remember thinking, even then, like standing at the edge of something vast and uncertain. But every time she reached for me in the dark,
By day, there might still
every
be
time she
mornings.
chose the messy truth over the safe distance, I knew I'd stand there with her
Serafina
as
couldn't
long
handle
as it
the
took.
distance.
Because by day she might still warn me to stay away sometimes. But by night, every single night, she couldn't handle the distance, and neither could I.